Good morning, St Kitts and Nevis, and welcome back to another edition of Voices here on WINN FM 98.9. Today is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. I'm your host for today, and I have a very special guest in our studios. His name is Dr. Terrance Drew, and he is the chairman of the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. Good morning, Dr. Drew, and welcome to the studios of WINN FM 98.9.
Good morning, Devonne. I want to say thanks to you for having me here, and thanks to WINN FM for hosting me. I want to say good morning also to the listening audience, and so I look forward to a meaningful discussion.
Definitely, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation, and we always look forward to having conversations and interviews such as these. So we're going to get right into the meat of the matter. We're here to speak about the recently launched CARE Foundation. Members of the public, including myself, we want to know more about what the CARE Foundation is about, and you're the perfect person to speak to. So my first obvious question would be, what is the CARE Foundation?
Thank you very much. We recently launched, and we were established on February 22nd, 2021, that is this year, under the Foundations Act 2119, number 8 of 2003. So it is well established. Of course, there had to be some legal work that would have gone into this to make sure that it meets the requirements legally, so that we can be on good foundation when it comes to that aspect of it. Then we had the official launch on April 17th, which was held at Karambola, where we invited a number of dignitaries and other persons, of course. And so because we wanted to, of course, start with that impression that we are a serious foundation, and our foundation is a non-partisan, non-sectarian, nothing at all that separate people, separate CARE from them.
Right.
And so we're not looking for the differences. We are looking for things that unite us as a people. And so we reached out to everybody across political lines, across sectarian lines, even though we don't have a lot of those issues here. And so CARE was established, of course, with that objective in mind. Now, why did I go ahead and be the founder of an organization like this? Why was it done? Well, I would say it is something that I always wanted to do, in the sense that I consider myself someone who serves people, someone who does that in the community, someone who has been involved all my life, from football to community organization, basketball, whatever it was, even education. I used to run free classes for children, president of the St. Peter's Football Club, the basketball club, executive member of the Eagle Boys Club, for my work with other women, with the young people in St. Peter's, people like Mary Nurse, Anita Clark, Shauna, Maynard, that we really formed a group that brought young men, because that was our response to the increase in crime in St. Kitts and Nevis. And this was early in the 2000s, and that is why, partly why St. Peter's never really became a hotbed for criminal activities and even the establishment of gangs. There might have been something scattered here and there, but the establishment did not take place because partly of the work of that. And so this is a natural extension into my community work, and so it was time to really get established the CARE Foundation. So what does CARE stand for? CARE stands for, and it is CARE, it's compassionate action to reach and empower, which means we want to reach out to our people, be compassionate in our outreach, and to empower our people through a number of activities and programs that we will be running. And so we hope really to reach our people. Now, when COVID-19 hit, you recognize that the economies across the world were hit, and St. Kitts and Nevis was no exception. And there were a lot of people who fell into difficult situations. Even presently, people are in real difficult situations, and they are seeking to be helped. And I think as a community that we should step up where we can and help those who need help. And so that is really the impetus behind starting CARE at this point in time. And so we are hoping that by our programs that we're going to be launching, that we would be able to reach our people. And I'm sure that we would. For example, our first program was to coordinate with the people of Station, other charities, to get water to the people of St. Vincent,
right,
where we send pallets and pallets of water to the people. And we thought that that should have been the first activity. It's in keeping with our goals and principles. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis would be our major work. However, we understand that it's in the region or anywhere at all where there's acute need and we can help, we should help. And so we were able to facilitate that. And I'm happy that that water was able to reach the people of St. Vincent, especially at a time when they need it most. We've also launched a program to assist the Cuban students, St. Kitts and Nevis students in Cuba, and that program is on the way already, and we are hoping by October to officially do all the handing over and so forth. And on this one, I would like to thank Simon of Ireland Auto Supply, who came on with that program. And so we are, of course, getting that organized so that we can really help to meet some of the needs of our students in Cuba, especially during this critical time. And as I've always said before, that Cuba has done tremendously well for the people of the St. Kitts and Nevis and the people of the region. And I think we should do our part to ensure that our students are well taken care of there in Cuba. And one of the other programs we're going to launch is that we're going to launch a food bank, because what we recognized during the pandemic is that food had become an acute need for many persons. I mean, before the pandemic, some people already had it difficult. And, you know, the situation got worse for many persons after the pandemic. And we want to do that as a means to maintain it so that at least we can reach those people who need those needs filled. And so we are working, you know, tirelessly hard towards that. And I think we are on the right path at this time, and we hope to accomplish these three things. We have a number of other things in the pipeline. However, we will release those things when the time is right.
What mechanisms are in place for the longevity of the foundation?
Right. So it's really established, as I told you before, in law. We also have a board of counselors and a president and a number of well-established persons who are working with the foundation. The president is Miss Nevis Shiverton, and we had a number of counselors, people like Dr. Christine Walwyn, lawyer Anthony Johnson. We have Miss Mary Clark, Mr. Dominic Stevens, Miss Lenny Blanchett, and we have Miss Loretta Evelyn. Now, we have the president and the councillors who will be doing the everyday runnings of the foundation. So in terms of longevity, what we have done is that we have carefully make sure that we form a volunteer group of young people, which is now expanding, so that these persons can come to care and be a part of care and be a part of the long-term goals and objectives of care. That will help us to continue. So we alone don't have to do everything as the founder and as the counselors, but we'll have a core of volunteers who would help us. And apart from that, we have now and seeking to establish relationships with organizations locally, regionally, and internationally. And these relationships will also help us to continue way into the future in achieving our goals and objectives. But I think that the longevity really comes from the energy of our people, the impetus to make sure that we continue. And once we have those programs that are well established, well connected, and they are rooted in proper processes, that will ensure that the program or the foundation survives.
And who are your target audience?
Right. So our target audience is really our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis, fundamentally. However, if there's an acute need within the region or any other place where we can help, we will help. So our target audience is here, and really it means all of our people, because CARE would have a number of things going on. We have this charity aspect of it, of food, soup kitchen, and those type of things, reaching out to the students and having a food bank and so forth. However, we will have a number of other things doing, such as training programs. For example, young people who leave school are prepared, are trained really to go to an interview, are trained and prepared to face the world of work. They will also benefit. So we will have a number of programs and initiatives that will target different components, different groups within our country, within our society. And so I say that we will target our population on a whole, but we will target a particular program to a particular group, because each group would have different needs, and that is what we will do.
Thank you. And how is the foundation supported? I know you spoke about having a board of counselors, but how is the foundation supported?
Well, it is supported fundamentally. We'll ask people to donate, which people have been doing, so donors, fundraisers, that will also be part of it, and connecting with other organizations who would be able to facilitate some of the things that we want to do because of like-mindedness. So fundamentally, we will be able to support it this way. Those three fundamental things. And I think having those three things, I think we definitely will be able to sustain in the long run. Already we have made a number of connections that are bearing fruits, and that to me is a good sign that we will be able to sustain.
If I may continue, Dr. Drew, what are some of the issues in your community that inspired you to start this foundation?
Well, I would say that there had always been issues in the community where you see people having difficulty with basic needs. But not only the basic needs, but they need help in terms of getting them to the next level. For example, students, how are we preparing them? People who have difficulty with the basic needs in life, how are you helping? But I think what really, what was the clincher, so to speak, was when COVID hit. And I started to receive calls and messages on my phone. Dr. Drew, I have no food to give my child. Yes. I don't even have Pampers. They said, just bring some Pampers. Just bring some child food. Can you just bring some bread? I mean, when you see the basic needs that people had, and many of the persons who had these basic needs were not the regular people in terms of those who would have fallen through the cracks. These were people who, in some cases, were working people, but of course, many of them may have lived from paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
And once that paycheck is cut, these people did not have the opportunity to save, even if they wanted to, based on how much they were working for. There are a lot of people who, of course, who are working for minimum wage. You have thousands of people in a PEP program. All of them are working for minimum wage, and you're talking thousands. And therefore, it means that when you hit, and these people who work for minimum wage, let's say they did not lose their jobs, but people do other things by means of income. For example, you might have somebody on the PEP who might be on the park and beaches aspect of it.
Right.
And he might have a machete or a weed eater, and then in the afternoon he gone to cut 2 yards, and that would supplement his income.
Right.
And then when the pandemic hit, he could not supplement his income, and so that made his or her situation even worse. Let's look at the taxi drivers, for example. I had taxi drivers call and say, Dr. Drew, they're taking away my vehicle. Why are they taking away my vehicle? It's obvious there are no cruise ships, no flights. Where would I make money from? And so they had gone into significant stress. Many of them couldn't pay their mortgages. Many of them couldn't keep up paying for their light bill, their water bill, and so forth, because it is obvious that if there are no ships, no planes coming in, how will they make their money? And so you see hundreds of these persons who were normally hard-working, self-sustaining people having difficulties, real difficulties, sometimes to meet the basic needs of life. And then you get calls at people saying that they're losing their electricity. I have a number of messages here of people telling me, Dr. Drew, they cut my electricity. That is heart-wrenching. And at this point, I will ask the government to really reflect on that and see if this is the time to be cutting people's electricity when we know the economy is now it's not their fault, of course, but a pandemic that has hit the world, and we here are suffering. So I think great consideration should be given to that. And I would like to call on the banks to stop the foreclosures. I visited a family, a wife, a husband, 4 children, and the house is up to foreclose. This is somebody who worked in the hotel industry. It's obvious that they would not have an income. And when you look at their track record before the pandemic, they had a perfect track record of meeting the bank's obligations in terms of making sure the mortgage is paid. After the pandemic, obviously they're out of work, and now the whole family is threatened to lose their home that they would have worked so hard for. So people are having difficulties, and I'm asking that there be some compassion for those who are hardworking, but at this time are facing difficulties.
Right.
And of course, the fault and the blame cannot be totally be placed at their feet. We all are hurting because the pandemic is hurting the economy, and we are all part of the economy, directly or indirectly. Some might be doing better than others because their industry might be open up, but you suffer nonetheless because we are all connected.
Dr. Drew, what to your knowledge has been done to fix these issues?
Right. So I would say there was a stimulus package. It was not enough. I know people probably get $1,000 maybe on 2 or 3 occasions. Couldn't even meet their mortgage payment. I think that there should have been a deeper discussion between the government, the banks, the electricity department, the water department, to suspend the payments to a great extent. You can study cases of persons, you can take them one by one if you want, and see really how these persons could be helped. Let's say during the pandemic, we will look at the mortgage. I know in the United States they had laws to say you couldn't evict anybody from their houses.
Yes.
They had to do those things because if you don't do those things, people are already under stress from a pandemic. And then on top of that, they are worrying, my light is going to cut off, my water is going to cut off, the bank is going to come to me. Then I have to scrunt to find food to feed my family. That is excess stress. And I think during times of crises, the government should take the bill, Sometimes you might have to run a deficit, but it's just like you're living in your home. Sometimes you have to run a deficit.
Yes.
If you're out of a job, you say, boy, I have to run a deficit for the people. You may trust from this shop, and say, man, when I get a job, I'll come back. It is, at the local level, but at the national level, you can say, look, people are having difficulties. The government would have to run a deficit between this period to this period, but then we'll recuperate after. And so that is why I'm saying that we need more help for the people out there. We need to be more compassionate and more considerate for our people. People are hurting, the taxi drivers, those in the hotel industries, those who used to work even for themselves, but people don't have money to say, come and cut my yard, come and wash my car. So everybody is affected. And I think as a community, we should approach it holistically and take care of our people through this difficult time. If I had the opportunity to be in a cabinet, I would say no electricity to be cut off, no water to be cut off during this period to that period. Afterwards, we will see what we will do and allow the people to have at least a less stressful life. They are very stressed, as it is with the pandemic, of course, but we have to make sure we do our part to help our people transition.
Dr. Drew, we're going really good. It is 20 minutes past the hour of 11, so we are going to take a short break to say thank you to our sponsors. When we come back, we are going to continue our program. Before we take that short break, let me say good morning to all of you on the Facebook Live. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, those of you at home and abroad in Radio Land, you're listening to Voices on WINN FM 98.9, and I'm here with Dr. Terrance Drew, the chairman of the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, and we're having a very interesting discussion. Let's take a short break.
Thank you.
Cool. Energize your goals with Lucozade. Get it cool. Look under the cap. Find the code. Win it. Thousands in prizes. iPhones and TVs. Or win 30 grand US dollars for your goals. That's goals.
For a chance to win 30,000 US dollars. Purchase any Lucozade Energy promo bottle. Look under the cap and find the code to win iPhones, TVs, and free Lucozade or 30,000 US dollars to energize your goals. See website, social media, or press for details. Lucozade, taste the energy.
Flow Broadband and TV is packed with even more value as you get a free Samsung tablet, free installation, and 50% off your bill for 3 months when you sign up now. Yes, a free Samsung tablet. Power all you do at home with up to 100 megabits per second super fast broadband. Plus, stay HD entertained with Flow TV. Stream, share, and do more on your new free tablet, which will also keep you connected on the go with ease. Sign up at a Flow store today. Conditions apply.
Gift for Dad's birthday? Click. Ooh, Janice's retirement party? Click. Outfit for my girl's wedding? Click. With TDC Airbox, you click, we ship. Register for your free U.S. mailbox today and shop all your favorite stores online. Enjoy the convenience, free consolidation up to £10, competitive rates, free package tracking account with live notifications, free delivery, and of course, excellent customer service. Visit our website at tdcairbox.com and register today. For more information, visit our offices at the C.A. Paul Industrial Site in St. Kitts and Penny's Industrial Site in Nevis. Follow us on social media at TDC Airbox. TDC Airbox. You click, we ship. Terms and conditions apply.
These are things that we would have been studying and almost predicting where will be the next pandemic, and so it has happened. Since last year, in 2020, as I expounded before, when I was in Germany and I saw Germany preparing for the pandemic, it had not hit the Caribbean as yet. And when I returned home from Germany, I think that I made certain utterances and warned our people. And at that point, I asked that we really consider closing the borders, because I was of the general view, had we closed the borders early, we would not have had any cases, and we could have kept our economy internally open.
Yes.
So that would have mitigated against a lot of the stress that people are suffering as a result of lost income and decreased economic activity. So that was the objective back then. We eventually closed the borders, and we saw the fruits of closing the borders. We were able to control the numbers and so forth. I just was calling for it to happen earlier because I was in Europe and saw what was coming. It's almost like you see the storm coming and you say, run for your life.
Right.
You don't wait until the storm hit to start to run. But that was and I participated in educating the people and trying to see how I could have worked along with the government. Of course, I was shunned, and actually my name was dragged through the mud with all sort of disparaging comments and tried to tarnish my name. At the end of the elections, I guess people recognized that nothing that they said was really true. It was from my spirit, from my heart, to see what I could have done, to work with whoever wanted to work, to see how we could have helped our people. From that, I would say that that is the way that a pandemic should always be approached, or any national crisis should be approached with a sense of togetherness and oneness. I think there are issues, or occurrences, or phenomena that would demand of us to put aside party politics and that we should work together. And I thought that the pandemic was such an opportunity. I would still say that there is still room, even though we were shunned and pushed aside. And Dr. Douglas, who is one of the most experienced doctors here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and I myself, who is one of few specialists in internal medicine, we have something to offer. And our offers, of course, were pushed aside and they sought to use it against us. Nonetheless, we are where we are, and I'm still calling that there's still room to work together. Because what you're talking about now in the communities and listening to our people talking about the vaccine, I said at the beginning, and even Dr. Douglas said, that we need a massive awareness campaign. Even before the vaccine hit, we asked that people come together, everybody would come together, and let us start a massive campaign. Why? Because human beings are made up a particular way. Without information, there's a subset of human beings that will not move, will not do what you ask them to do.
Right.
It is the nature of how we are made up psychologically. And that is why education, anybody would tell you, from any society, from any time, that education is fundamental in getting human beings to change behavior or accept that which can be good. So if you don't do that and participate in that, you will automatically meet resistance. Has nothing to do with politics. I understand that. Why? Because I'm a medical doctor. I see patients all the time. And sometimes you offer treatment, and there's a subset of patients who are going to say, well, Dr. Drew, I'm going to ask more questions. What is that? How is that going to affect me? Can I take something else? Dr. Drew, let me think about it. You have a diabetic, insulin been around for decades,
Right.
and I say, we need to start insulin. Dr. Drew, I hear this about insulin, that about insulin. Should I take insulin? Let me read up on it some more. Can you offer me an alternative? These are the questions. And the vaccine is no exception.
Right.
It is a treatment just like what I face, and people are going to ask the question, what is the vaccine? Where did it come from? How was it developed? How would it affect me? Should I take it? Is it really working? And what complicates the whole situation is that people have access to social media and the information, and they see all sorts of things on social media,
Yes.
which complicates the situation. And that is why I say that you needed a united front to work together in a massive public awareness campaign to make sure you deal with the questions that people have. You just can't push people questions away. You have to answer them because these are legitimate questions.
Yes.
One question somebody asked me, Dr. Drew, before I take the vaccine and I get a serious reaction and I have to end up in the hospital, who's going to take care of me? Who's going to pay my bills? I mean, those are things that we have to answer because people have legitimate concerns. Dr. Drew, I suffer from severe allergies. Should I take the vaccine? Should I not take the vaccine? I'm scared because last week I ate something. I mean, these are real nuts and bolts issues, nothing to do with politics. Because in my practice, I have patients from all spectrum of the political climate here in St Kitts and Nevis. And they come, all of them, it doesn't matter their political persuasion, they have these questions. So these questions I put into you are questions that people in the community have. And these questions, you know for sure that there will always be some level of resistance. And how do you deal with that? Massive awareness campaign. Educate, educate, educate. And how do you do that? You bring all hands on deck and say, look, we have to work together to educate our people. Let's put the partisan politics aside and let's get out there and educate. And to me, that complicated the situation now because people are asking me, so Dr. Drew, what happened here? What happened there? What happened there? They're hearing things, not seeing things. You're not working together. What's going on? These are other legitimate concerns from the population. So I think coming together would have been the best thing to deal with the pandemic. Nonetheless, people are asking legitimate questions about how the vaccine would affect them, especially in light of social media and all the information that they're getting. But let me say this. I am a medical doctor. I am a scientist by training. I have seen the benefits of vaccine. There are diseases I can mention to you that you only hear in passing, such as polio.
Yes.
We have never, when last have we seen
Right.
a case of polio? It's been, I think, decades maybe. Measles, German measles, rubella, as we call it. Yes. We now vaccinate against hepatitis, meningitis. And so there are a lot of diseases that we are not seeing because of vaccines. And so as a scientist and having studied this, I have recognized that. However, there are serious concerns with respect to taking a vaccine. Even here in the in St Kitts, the Rastafarian community is not a community that participates in vaccination. And you cannot just go out there and force them into that. You have to at least respect them. What do I say? You open up a dialogue, open up conversation. Do not mandate, educate.
Right.
Do not mandate, educate. Because I said to somebody the other day, I lived in Cuba, I lived in the United States for a while. I said to people, if the President of the United States if he were to suggest that vaccination be mandated, I can guarantee you he's on the brink of a civil war. Because when I lived in Texas, people take their civil liberties very seriously.
Yes.
And they don't think that any government should tell them what they should do and not do with their bodies. That they would fight for. And so what they started there and what they encouraged there was not to mandate anybody, but let's start a massive education campaign. And so in the hospitals, on the streets, in the super, wherever you went, there was education, 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 education. And so with a lot of education, people, would come around. And that is why I say educate, educate, don't mandate.
If I may add, Dr. Drew, I too have been interacting with members of the public throughout the different communities, and I would say that I get the very same response. Some persons, we know now that there is a reluctance and a hesitancy to taking the vaccine, and some persons may not understand. The argument that I'm hearing now is that, well, you take paracetamol, you take Advil, you take these different medicines. Why don't you have the same questions for those medicines, for those prescriptions, but you have the questions now for the COVID-19 vaccine? And so there seems to be, in my opinion, a push for people to take the vaccine instead of really giving them that opportunity to learn more about it. And so we're hearing comments all across the region about making it mandatory. You either take the vaccine or you go home. You take the vaccine or you can't get pay, or you have to take the vaccine or show proof that you are negative of the coronavirus disease. And so we understand that people are placed in a very difficult position, because now you have to take the vaccine, which you have expressed you are not open to taking, or you have to find $200 every 2 weeks to find a COVID-19 test. So people are indeed placed in a very difficult spot. Yes, there will be people who will be open to taking the vaccine. That is completely fine. There are others who have said, as you mentioned, the Rastafarian community, who are not open to taking the vaccine. So I too have seen some feedbacks throughout the community here in St Kitts and Nevis. People are not going forward to take the vaccine. Now, as I made mention about people talking about other medicines and not questioning those medicines,
right?
What would you say to that?
I would say that as a medical doctor, people do question those medications. It's just that it is of no significance. If somebody decided they had a headache, and many patients tell me, Dr. Drew, I'm not taking any painkillers, that they would prefer to go home, go in a dark room, drink some water, and go to sleep. So they do have concerns. Not only that, I would tell you, as simple as it looks, paracetamol causes a lot of issues. We know that they do. But people do have questions about drugs. Sometimes people come to my office, they're hypertensive, their blood pressure is high, and they say, you need to probably take a blood pressure medication. I said, Dr. Jermaine, I'm not taking any blood pressure medication. I'm going to try the natural way.
Yes.
So people do have their concerns, but we don't hear about these because they have no consequence. So to say, for example, even in the Rastafarian community, I would say Rastafarians, and they'll say, Dr. Drew, give me something natural. And they have a good reason to think so. I, as a doctor, cannot force anything on them. What if I give them a medication and they develop an acute reaction and end up in the hospital or even end up dead? Am I responsible for that? I am not here to judge anybody. I'm here to educate, dialogue, and see the best way forward together. Because that has always been the nature in which medicine is practiced. To sit with your patient, to have a dialogue, to educate with them, and not coerce or to force or to mandate, but to educate for a change in behavior. And for me, people's medical history and record, that's very private. So I don't even discuss with people about their private medical record. If somebody take the vaccine or don't take the vaccine, that is their personal medical history. You just cannot show up and demand from them their personal medical history. And that has to be looked at very carefully. I am also saying if you mandate people, that might be illegal also. Illegal to force somebody to take a substance in their body. So we should not use no big stick. That is not how you run a democratic country. You don't use a big stick. And even in countries where there's totalitarianism, you still have resistance of people. Because there's a subset of people who say, well, kill me. Right? So what I'm still saying, somebody might say this today, but tomorrow they might change. Educate, 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 and educate more, and get all hands on deck to educate. And that education can actually lead to a shift. So these arguments, about I see campaign, vaccinate for carnival, this for that. For some people, that's fine. But for others who look at the situation, they really want to have a sit down and to discuss and to go through all of their concerns with respect to taking a vaccine that is approved on an emergency basis. And I said to people that your medical record is very, very private. However, what I think can be mandated is wear mask, social distancing. Those things can be mandated, right? You're not asking anybody to take anything into their bodies, but you are telling them that this has shown and you should respect other people in that sense.
In your capacity as the chairman of the Labour Party, what is the party doing to encourage people to take the vaccine?
Well, many persons have asked that. The party, let me talk in this sense. The party has been out there from the beginning, and the party believes in the science of vaccination. We don't believe in mandating. We believe in education. Educate, educate, educate. And so our efforts to educate, of course, were pushed aside. And that is why I'm saying now that for the Prime Minister to be saying to the country that the reason why people are not vaccinating is because of Dr. Denzel Douglas is the most politically cynical statement on this whole issue of COVID-19 that I have heard. He cannot be serious with making a statement like that. Instead of making a politically charged, divisive statement like that, which has further politicized the situation and will not help the situation in general, he should be, as the leader, be magnanimous, put out the olive branch and reach across. Because Dr. Denzel Douglas has the political acumen, he has the medical acumen. Remember, he was the international leader on the response to HIV/AIDS. I don't think we fully understand Dr. Denzel Douglas's input in controlling the AIDS epidemic and pandemic, if you can go that far, in the world. He was the one who came up with the idea of how you can fund the AIDS medication to reach the countries that were affected the most. That was one of the biggest, and for that he got the Trumpet Award, and Bill Clinton tipped his hat. Bill Clinton, former president of the United States, tipped his hat to Dr. Denzel Douglas for one of the best ideas, if not one of the better ideas, if not the best, in terms of how do we get medication to the poor people of the world. So we are not against educating people, participating. It's just that we were pushed aside, we were ostracized. I suffered most as a result of that. And I say today that our people should reflect on those things and recognize that the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party has as its leader a doctor, has as its chairman a doctor, and we understand the science. And we were never against science in the first place. As a matter of fact, we wanted to be at the table to help our people.
Now, of course, the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party is a political party. And as you mentioned, the party was out there from the beginning in the vaccination efforts. I know we spoke about the general feedback from members of the community, but what about the feedback from Labour supporters?
Well, Labour supporters are like any other citizen. Some have taken it, and some have not taken it. Some have the concerns, and some want more information. So to separate, and your question is valid because people are trying to frame it that way. But the truth is, this is not really along party lines. This is really human beings responding to something new. And it is the same way. I met a gentleman the other day, staunch supporter of unity. And he's a Rastafarian, and he is not into taking the vaccine. That is not along party lines at all. So just like any other group, the Labour Party has a spectrum of people with a myriad of responses. We are not different.
Because the reason why I asked the question is exactly what you said. It was along the line of, well, I don't support the government, so I won't take the vaccine. But I have interacted with people who support the government, and they have not taken the vaccine. I have interacted with people who are members of the opposition on St Kitts and Nevis, and they have said, I've taken the vaccine.
Yes.
They went forward, they took the vaccination. So in my humble opinion, I don't think you might have some. Let me say that.
Yeah.
You might have some
but
people.
the minority.
But generally, I don't think people are saying, well, I'm not going to take it because Dr. Harris is the Prime Minister or Mr. Brantley is the Premier. I don't think that is the general...
That is not the general
sense from our people.
No, let me tell you, and you're hitting the nail on the head. In my medical practice, I see people who support the Dr. Harris and the unity government, if you may call it that. And when people get sick, people ain't care, to put it in our local parlance. People really don't care. People just want who is the best person or the better person in their own mind who can take care of my situation right now. I just want to be alive. And so it is not broken down along party lines at all. It is people would have their issues. Some will go forward. Some will have issues. Some need more information. And that is why education is always the key.
Dr. Drew, it is 11:44, so we're going to open the phone lines. The numbers to call are 466-0989, 762 and 662. We're going to take a short break to say thank you to our sponsors, and when we come back, we are going to take your calls right up until 12 for the headline news. You're listening to Voices on WINN FM 98.9. I have here in the studio Dr. Terrance Drew, chairman of the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. Let's take a short break.
Yes.
Buying your medication is easy with City Drugstore's curbside pickup. WhatsApp our certified pharmacist at 662-8769 with your requests. For prescriptions, take a clear photograph and send for review. We will engage you in dialogue and then provide a quotation and link for payment. You can then pay via TDC's online payment portal. And once the transaction is complete, you'll be notified that your pickup is ready. Yes, it's that easy. Send your WhatsApp message to 662-8769 to order your medications today with City Drugstore's curbside pickup service.
Broadband and TV is packed with even more value as you get a free Samsung tablet, free installation, and 50% off your bill for 3 months when you sign up now. Yes, a free Samsung tablet. Power all you do at home with up to 100 megabits per second super fast broadband. Plus, stay HD entertained with Flow TV. Stream, share, and do more on your new free tablet, which will also keep you connected on the go with ease. Sign up at a Flow store today. Conditions apply.
Welcome back to Voices on WINN FM 98.9. Do we have a caller? We have no callers. Dr. Drew?
Yes, I wanted to touch a little bit on the Constitutional Conference.
We seem to have a caller on the line.
Yes.
Let us take this call, Dr.
Go
Drew.
ahead.
Caller, good morning. You're live on Voices.
Pleasant good morning, Dr. Drew. How are you?
Good morning, I'm fine, and how are you?
Very good.
Excellent.
I am a big unity.
Yes.
I don't know how big I could get. But Dr. Drew, I love you. I love the conversation. But this is not a government thing. This is not a political thing. This is something going inside of your body.
Yes.
And I am not going to take it because I love Timothy. I love the Unity Party. I may want the Labour Party. This is not going in. This is something actually going inside in your body. You is going to have to live with it and die with it. And I am not taking it. Love to all. Bye.
Thank you, caller, so much for your contribution.
Exactly the point that we're making, the caller touched on. I would like to say we had the Constitutional Conference this past Sunday. And the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party, which is possibly the oldest active political party in the Commonwealth.
Yes.
I read that somewhere, and I'm trying to verify it, because it's very possible that we are. And I'm talking about when you look at countries like Australia and so forth, Canada and so forth, that we have. And we thought that it was necessary to do some constitutional reform, upgrade of our constitution, and that would help us to deal with the needs of the time, and help us to build and solidify going into the future. And so we would have started a number of exercises of consultation and listening to our people, having political scientists come in and study the whole situation and make recommendations and give us reports. So this was the culmination of many years of work. And I'm very proud that our party was able to do this. This shows our maturity. It shows our foundation as a party and how strong we really are. I don't think any other party in the Federation would have had such an exercise like the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. We believe in good governance. We believe in having a constitution that governs our organization because, believe it or not, I have studied it. And it is because of these things why the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party is so strong. Our structure. And we are serious when it comes to our structure. We are serious when it comes to our constitution. And that, more than anything else, is holding us and has held us together. And so we're able to make a number of fundamental changes to the constitution, and we are very, very happy for that. I want to thank those of our comrades who worked tirelessly hard in committees, who sat down to discuss, who gave their reports. There are so many names to call at this point in time. And I want to thank, of course, the leader of our party, who was a part and parcel and fundamental part of it, and all of the other leaders, and the rank and file, who I consider to be the heartbeat of labor, who would have been a part of the process. And so that exercise was extremely successful, and we are happy to have accomplished that.
Dr. Drew, we have a call on the line. Let's take this call. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Cornelius.
Yes, good morning.
How are you today, sir?
I'm doing good, thanks.
And I wish to say good morning to Mr. Drew, Dr. Drew.
Yes, good morning. Good morning.
Dr. Drew, I like your mantra in terms of education, education, education. You, coming from the field of medicine, it's quite appropriate that, you know, we educate our people in terms of what the vaccine might entail, even though you did not go into the crux of what the ingredients might be. But I would hear the pros and the cons, and persons will come up with a rationale that when we were children, we took the vaccine, so what is the difference with taking the vaccine when we were children as opposed to now? That does not fly with me, because at that point in time, we were under the auspices, so to speak, of our parentage, you know, parental guidance, and somewhat we had no other choice. With this age of information, and I might even say that throughout, because there are other companies that do produce vaccines, I'm afraid that some of the companies, given their past record, why people will have their doubts. Now, I have said something, and I'm not going to go down the road because I had said it on this radio station. But preferably, I have said something. Earlier in your statement, you spoke about, I think it's a Cuban alumni.
Yes.
And that aspect. And I had made that point. The Cubans have gave human service, and for me to be in a hospital, having a Cuban doctor taking care of me, I would not see why wouldn't I want, and in terms of the powers that be, why wouldn't I want having given such a service and knowing that Cuba also produced a vaccine, and given our track record here on St Kitts and Nevis, if no other place else, I would not want to see that preferably in the adage, the conventional wisdom of leadership. Why would I think about the Cuban vaccine, which would have been unfolded, and I was told it has been already rolled out to their citizens.
Right, caller, pose your questions, as we have other callers who are trying to get in.
Yeah, not to prefer the Cuban vaccine. That's just my take on it.
Right.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. Can I say one thing with him?
Sure, go ahead.
The caller made a fundamental point about Cuba. At this time, Cuba is a Caribbean country, and I think Cuba is possibly the first country south of the equator, the southern nations, that is in the process of producing 5 vaccines. And they're even testing it in children and pregnant people. Cuba has always produced, since in the 70s to the 80s, their own vaccines. And Cuba has given the world 2 vaccines, the lung cancer vaccine and the vaccine for extended spectrum of meningitis. And the United States access those vaccines through universities because they can't have country-to-country relationship. So Cuba has had a solid track record when it comes to vaccine. And I would also like to say that when recently we had the issue of the Ebola, it were the Cuban doctors who stopped Ebola. And I think many times these things that Cuba would have done for the world, done for Africa and the Caribbean, these things are pushed under the rug. But we must give credit where credit is due. And I want to give a shout out to Cuba as a fellow Caribbean country who is seriously entering into the scientific echelons of developmental medicine or the development of vaccines. They are at the epitome. And that makes me proud that a Caribbean country of 13 million people can even be bold enough to start to develop 5 vaccines. We should be proud of them. I am proud of them. So whatever the outcome is, they have made a valiant effort. Kudos to Cuba.
Dr. Drew, I think we have okay, we seem to have lost that call. We have any more callers on the line? We have one more caller. Let us take this call.
Yes.
Okay, we seem to have lost that call. Caller, so sorry. It is 11:56. We are wrapping up and we're getting to the end of our program. Again, thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being here in the studios of WINN FM 98.9. This is Dr. Terrance Drew. He's the chairman of the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party. We had a very interesting conversation about the CARE Foundation and what the CARE Foundation is about. We had a conversation about mandatory vaccination, some of the issues that you face in your community and issues that you have responded to. The St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party supporting the vaccination program. Now, what I wanted to ask you, Dr. Drew, as we're wrapping up, as a person who, whether you're a politician, a public official, a medical doctor, have you taken the vaccine?
Well, what I have said, and that is a question that people normally ask. I had a patient recently, and she was being sent home because she did not take the vaccine. I asked her one fundamental question. Why is it somebody was accessing your medical record? Did you give them that? Nobody should access anybody's medical record. And I stand firm with that because people are being discriminated against. And that is what I would say with respect to that. However, I'm a medical doctor and I know how to take care of myself. But I'm saying that people's medical record should not be accessed. An employer has no right to ask an employee whether or not they would have taken the vaccine. He should be concerned about, are you protecting yourself, washing your hands, stuff like that. Just like when we're in medicine, you cannot ask a patient if they have HIV if they don't want to divulge it.
Right.
But you have to make sure you do what you call universal protective mechanisms so that you assume and you have to protect yourself. So I am against accessing people's medical records. I am against using people's status against them, whether they should eat or should not eat. This is against basic human rights. So my answer to any question on that, leave people and their personal health record alone. Educate, and they will do the right thing.
Dr. Drew, thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to come here at WINN FM. It was indeed a pleasure, and we're hoping that we can have you back in the future. Thank you guys so much for listening to Voices. Today is Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. I was your host for today, Devonne Cornielius, and we had Dr. Terrance Drew, chairman of the St Kitts and Nevis Labour Party,